Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL graduates. Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be going through a draft that we have managed to concoct over the last few days. We've managed to get a Threemium in with the key three in Haaland, Salah and Palmer all in one draft, and it is actually very, very strong. So we're excited to show you this draft, and yeah, let's get straight into the goalkeeper and defence.
Yeah, we've been cooking up some magic here at FPL Graduates. So we've got a full draft with Salah, Palmer and Haaland, and it could be semi-viable if you're willing to sort of cheap out on the defence. So yeah, starting off in goal, you can have any 4.5 million keeper, to be honest, but I've gone with Petrovic. I think post Gameweek 1, fixtures for Bournemouth look nice. So if you've got a more long-term radar on your horizon, then I think he's a very nice pick. Obviously, if you're scared about the Liverpool away fixture, then by all means go with Kelleher. There's numerous options. You can check out our best goalkeepers video if you want to pick a different one. Wan-Bissaka, Williams and Van der Ven in the defence, all three with very, very nice fixtures for Game Week 1. Wan-Bissaka could be due if you fancy going more differential. Again, Williams is very good for DEFCON at 5 million and also carries a bit more attacking threat than the likes of Murillo. And then Van der Ven as well, Burnley at home, it looks like a pretty nailed clean sheet if I'm being honest at this sort of time recording. What's your thoughts on that defence, Ben? Do you think it's decent? Can you get away with that going into Game Week 1?
I think you probably could in Game Week 1 get away with it. The Petrovic pick, of course, like Josh said, could be any 4.5 million. We're just looking sort of ahead to Game Week 2 onwards. And like you said, with Wan-Bissaka / Van der Ven, that could easily be Diouf and Udogie, whoever that you want that to be. And yeah, even sort of Nico Williams, we're sort of looking at that fairly decent fixture run start of the season for Nottingham Forest, and that is definitely a viable defence to go for. We've seen with a lot of content creators recently that funds have been taken out of the defence because, you know, the lower priced 4.5 still could get that DEFCON points, and sort of the floor and the ceiling raises by a couple of points. So a lot of managers then wanting to invest their funds in the attackers that are going to get them those goal scoring points.
Yeah, and then to touch on the bench, obviously Dubravka's on there with the Burnley fixture. At the time of recording, he's having his medical, but that deal looks almost done, which is the first £4 million keeper that we know will be a starter, basically. Chris Richards is there. You could have Gahey as well, similar to what we mentioned in the team. Fixtures from Game Week 2 onwards get a little bit better for Crystal Palace, and obviously defensively they're probably one of the better sides in that 4.5 million category. Mark Guéhi, again, someone who should get decent minutes for Sunderland. I wouldn't expect him to start necessarily at the beginning, but I do expect him to come off the bench a fair few times. So as a 4.5 million dead spot as a forward, I think you can't really get much better than that. And then Esteve on the bench as well for Burnley. Game Week 2 they face Sunderland, so when the likes of Van der Ven has City, I think West Ham have Chelsea, you could then put Richards and Esteve in there and still have decent fixtures basically. But by all means you could build your own 4.5/4 rotations in the defence. It's just sort of the structure of the team.
Okay, so moving on into the midfield, and of course this is where we see two of our three premiums, Mohamed Salah and Cole Palmer in there. In terms of the rest of the midfield, we haven't actually sort of scrimped out too much on the rest of the midfield. We've got Ndiaye in there at 6.5 million, which again could be sort of any 6.5 million midfielder, whether that be, you know, Karu Mitoma. You could even sort of go down to like an Elliot Anderson, which seems to be a bit of a favourite of FPL managers at the moment. And Ndiaye, of course, could be on the penalties as well for Everton, which is fantastic. Morgan Rogers, we did see in pre-season come off with a knock after 3 minutes, so we'll just have to monitor that there. But again, there's enough funds there for you to be able to play around with that midfield spot if needed. And then Harry Wilson, who looks in fairly decent form in pre-season as well. A few managers looking more and more tempted with each day that goes by to go with Wilson. So Josh, that's the midfield there. It's a fairly viable one as well, and one that probably wouldn't look too out of place in most normal drafts.
Yeah, no, I think two of the midfielders I have in my draft that doesn't have Salah in it, or Palmer. So yeah, it's definitely viable. Obviously, Wilson again is just probably the most popular 5.5 at the moment. You could look at multiple 5.5s. You mentioned Elliot Anderson at 5.5. A lot of the DEFCON midfielders are around that price point. So if you're looking for longevity, safety of minutes, things like that, you could definitely go with the likes of Caicedo or Anderson. I think for a midfield, that considering we're getting all three of these big boys in, you can't complain with that. Okay, to wrap up the team then, we've got Erling Haaland, of course, up front, partnering Danny Welbeck, who me and Ben are pretty big on at the moment in pre-season. 6.5 million for a striker who is on penalties, direct free kicks, talismanic figure in that Brighton team. We expect him to play number 9 for the majority of minutes, obviously going into the season with no João Pedro there. We have seen a sort of a mix of forwards in pre-seasons for Brighton, but I think that's just hurt to sort of testing out different formations and systems. I still think Welbeck will be starting come game week 1. Also, you have the ability, similar like the rest of this squad, which is why it's a decent structure to go with. You can switch him out to Strand Larsen, maybe someone else that sort of takes your fancy at that point. Obviously, you could downgrade maybe Rodgers to a 6.5 like Kudus, and then maybe upgrade Welbeck to Evan Nilsson. It's pretty sort of manipulative in terms of what you can do with the team. What's your thoughts on Welbeck, Ben, and then sort of that whole structure of that lineup?
Yeah, I mean, Danny Welbeck looks to be a decent option with everything that he's got going for him in terms of the potential penalties, set pieces. He's got a bit of everything, which I think is really good. And of course, being, hopefully the sole number 9 for Brighton, we should see a fair amount of minutes for him. And then in terms of the whole squad structure, I think it ends up being really strong as a squad structure because you completely take out the risk of missing out on points early on from one of the big three, which we see as Palmer, Salah and Haaland, and you can get to any player in the game at the moment in 1 or 2 free transfers, which could be crucial to start the season. If Saka starts off on fire, not a problem. Palmer or Salah to one of these guys. If Isak or Gyökeres or Watkins starts on fire and Haaland doesn't, no problem. We can downgrade Haaland to get those guys in. If one of the defence is looking fantastic and Cucurella's getting back-to-back hat-tricks, no problem at all. Downgrade one of the midfielders to upgrade one of the defenders. It's going to take 2 transfers, so it won't be too difficult to do. So yeah, I think the squad structure is actually pretty solid. The only issues you're going to have is if those mid-priced options start to sort of tick over quite nicely, so between your sort of £7.5 million midfielders or forwards, you might come a little bit unstuck because you might be struggling to justify dropping one of Palmer, Salah or Haaland to bring one of these guys in. So that's the only difficulty that you are going to have. And in a typical FPL season, we do see one of those come out the woodwork. We saw it last season. We're going to see it every season. So that's the only risk associated with that. Like in Burma last season, for example, was one that we saw there. So yeah, in terms of the structure, looks okay. There's negating risk, but you are also bringing on more risk within that mid-price point.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. I think also in the defence, with how many £6 million defenders there are this year, and loads with super high ceilings at the minute. Obviously, we need to see them a little bit more, like the Kirkes, Frimpong, Aït-Nouri, all of these guys. No Arsenal as well in this draft. Obviously, they face Leeds United at home in game week 2, so there are some cons to it, although it does look really nice on paper. There are a few flaws. So yeah, if you are going to go with this draft, let us know in the comments.
Okay, so that rounds up this video, and let us know what you think of this freemium draft. How many premiums are you looking to bring into your FPL teams this season? We would be definitely keen to know. And as usual, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the FPL graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good pre-season, everyone.
But I'm not going down with you. So you may rise, but you'll never make me wanna stick around you.